Hey guys, well welcome back to Kroger Gaming. My name is Kroger, and I want to talk to you guys today about Xenoverse 2 and why I think that it could be a competitive game, and if not, definitely Xenoverse 3, and why I think that they could be on the Evo, on the competitive game circuit, and why I think that they would be fun to watch. And a lot of people would say that I'm crazy and say that, oh, this is not a competitive game, and everybody seems to be waiting for this Dragon Ball Z Fighters and saying, "Oh, this is the competitive game everybody's been waiting for." And I think that's the reason I wanted to make this video. It's because I'm frustrated with that frame of mind and that the way that people are thinking about that. Because this game is very competitive. If you fought anybody that frustrates you or that makes you mad at this game because you just can't seem to beat them, that right there is kind of proof that this game is competitive. I'm not saying that if they are using tactics that you just haven't figured out a way around yet, that shows that it's competitive, but I'm just saying that there is a skill gap. There's a skill gap between your average players, your good players, and your great players. I can say that because I have fought everybody in between, from all range, from your very terrible players to the best of the best. I fought them all, and I've beaten all of them at least once. I've beaten everybody. I don't consider myself to be the best Xenoverse player that there is, but I consider myself to be among them. I was ranked in the top 30 when rank actually mattered back when you actually lost BP. It was hard to get up there. Still not saying that equated to skill, but that's just a little bit of my resume for any of you that are new here that haven't watched any of my other prior videos, or that you still don't. Some people don't like the way that I play, and that's okay. I understand that, but that's what I want to talk about too in this video. There's a definite skill gap between the great players, the good players, the average players, and the bad players, and that right there in itself shows that there is a level of competitiveness to this game. And so that right there shows that it could be cultivated and turned into a game on Evo. And I don't think it's fair to compare this game to, say, your Street Fighters or your Tekkens or your Injustice, because it's not the same type of game. Not just because it's not a 2D fighter, but because of the way this fighting system is implemented. Because you don't have to have the input commands for your move sets, it frees up your mind to focus and fight in a different way, or a different manner, than it would, say, if you were doing those other fighting games. Because in those other fighting games, it's much more difficult to chain your combos together and to execute the moves, and so your fighting begins. The fights are very interesting, don't get me wrong, but they tend to be a little bit slower paced, and it's because you have to be much more methodical, and you have to think about so many different things all at the same time. Whereas this one, it's one button input commands. Your combos are, your attack buttons are two buttons. You've got your key buffs for one button, your vanish for the other, your step dashes are, it's not a complex system, which is good, because then it allows you to free your mind up once you've mastered that system to focus on the actual fighting. And what I say about that is, or why I say that is because if any of you out there have actually done competitive fighting like I have, you understand this. You understand that one of the biggest parts of preparing for a fight is, one, you have to prepare yourself for, how am I going to set up my offense? How am I going to be able to land this punch, or how am I going to be able to land this kick? So I'm going to set it up with this move here, and then I'm going to land it here whenever. I'm going to try to get the opponent to do this, and so when they do this, I'm going to counter with this. Or the inverse, whenever my opponent does this, I'm going to counter with this. And Xenoverse is a lot of that, so it makes it very much like a real fight, because it has that strategic aspect to it. And I think that gives it a level of, I don't know exactly how you would put it, but it gives it this different level to it than those other fighting games have. Now, I know that there is that in those other fighting games, that you have that I'm going to counter with this. but this one is it allows you to be so fluid with it because there's so little thought on how you do the moves, and that it's not like, oh, I'm going to screw up you know, my counter, you know what I mean? I'm not going to mess up my Shoryuken because of nerves, you know. Whenever I see my counter, I have the ability to go for it, and I like that because then it puts it more on preparation and timing, and anyways, it helps you to focus more on the strategic aspect of the fights, because then you get into well, how am I going to manage my stamina? How do I manage where my health is at? How do I manage my ki? Because for me, it differs every fight. My stamina management varies wildly. If I'm fighting somebody really good, my stamina management actually comes in two different varieties, depending on how the fight's going. If I'm winning a lot of the hand-to-hand battles, when they start hitting me, my stamina management is going to be much better. I'm gonna allow them to kind of hit me, and I'm gonna wait till the right time, get out, and then get back in and continue winning the hand-to-hand battle. But if they're getting their shots off first, I might waste my stamina a little bit because I've the way I've built my character, which is something I'll get into in a minute. I have a little bit of stamina to waste, so I might waste some stamina just to try to gain the upper hand, because also I have the health to back it up yet again because how I've built my character. And so it allows me to have a different playstyle versus different fighters. It allows me to change things on the fly and to adapt and to grow during the middle of a fight and to come out victorious, which yet again makes for good fights, makes for great comebacks, which if you don't believe me, go watch my video, the ranked matches epic comebacks video. There's some really good, especially the very first fight on there is awesome. It's a great comeback, come from behind victory against a guy that mainly has had problems because of turnaround bugs and lag, but he had me dead to rights, and I pull out a great comeback because of my preparation, because of things I've done in the training room that most people wouldn't even think to mess with, but I knew the timing of and how to use, because you know, all of my moves I have put together for certain reasons and certain instances to set me up for success. They may not be the most optimal as far as damage output is concerned, but they set me up for success. Each one has its own specific purpose and its own time and when it needs to be used, and they all eventually lead to me getting the W. But what's great about that is this own personal martial arts style that you perfect, you get to take in and fight against other martial arts styles that people have either developed or are practicing essentially. I feel like when people are doing the meta, it's essentially like they are all practitioners of this same type of martial art. And then when you have someone like myself who has their own fighting style that I feel like is unique, you know, this is my own type of martial art that is mine to me, and then my character build is unique to me. I like that, and I like the ability to be able to take those in and fight against other people because it makes each fight unique and interesting. And then, you know, when I was talking about how I want to talk about character builds is the other thing that I think gives this chance a bit, or gives this game and future games like it the chance to be competitive and interesting in a new way. Like I said, depending on who I was fighting and whatnot, depending on how my stamina management might be, or my health management might be, or my key management might be. And I built my character so that I would be able to, I optimized her so she'd have the amount of health that I wanted to be able to have, the stamina that I wanted to be able to have. I built her the way I wanted her to be, to where she's the best possible version of her that I feel like I can get. And I love that. And then, you know, if any of you have or know who Syriax is or have watched the Syriax games, you kind of understand that there's a lot of people out there like myself who have these characters that they've created and have kind of taken on a life of their own. And it was wildly successful. People really enjoyed that and gravitated toward that. And the thought of all these different characters coming in and to the competitive scene, you know, and fighting, it's an exciting and kind of promising thought, because you know, you have people like Mr. Toby, who, if you don't know who he is a YouTuber, a streamer who plays as the Mechian who ended up winning the Syriax games. He's a very good fighter, but he's not necessarily the best fighter, but what makes him so good is the fact that he is able to adapt to people's fighting styles so well that even if you beat him once one way, he's going to adapt to that, and you're not going to be able to beat him that way next time. And so it makes him a very difficult opponent in a tournament like the Syriax games, where it was a best of 5 game, because you might beat him one round and then that was it. He's got you figured out and you're not going to beat him anymore. Or you've got you know, people like Syriax himself, who is very loud, very vocal, very boisterous, and people, you know, gravitate toward that, for either they like that or they want to see that guy fall. It makes for good narratives. You know, I'm friends with Kid from the Six, and he's very polarizing. You either love him or you hate him, but he makes for a good villain. You put somebody like that into a tournament, it makes for good storytelling. You know, and his characters all have kind of their own background to them as well. And so, you know, a narrative, a storytelling of, you know, this guy versus this guy, good versus evil, whatever, that that gets people who are watching much more invested when they either love or they hate somebody. That makes them want to watch it all that much more. And at the end of the day, the competitive scene is about money for the advertisers, and if you can present them a product that people will watch and enjoy, that's really what it all is all about. Because we have the aspects of gameplay with the skill gap, where people who are good will beat people who are not good, regardless of tactics or cheap skills. And I say that even if they hadn't nerfed the Absolute Zero and the God of Destruction's Wrath, the Go Gun Bullets to the Dragon Bullet, whatever crap that they did. And the reason I say that is because I have a video that I was going to put out before they nerfed all that crap on teaching people how to beat that. And I don't think that those are moves that should have been nerfed to begin with, because, well, I'll take that back. The Dragon Bullet probably needed to be nerfed. Maybe not the Go-Go Gum, not the Absolute Zero, and not the God of Destruction's Wrath. Just the Dragon Bullet, because of the damage output it would do, because it didn't push you away like it was supposed to. It didn't work as intended. And so that needed to be patched, but not necessarily nerfed. Because Go-Go Gum was meant to hold you in place and allow them to do another move, because now it is useless. Same with Absolute Zero. And the God of Destruction's Wrath was meant to be a heavy stamina break that cost 2 key bars. And yes, the fact that people could chain it together was crappy, but there was ways around it. You know, have this right Z-Soul. Have, you know, there's a, you know, maybe maybe the God of Destruction's Wrath, the tweak that they did where you couldn't constantly keep someone in a loop of that heavy stamina break, I think is good. But some of I think a lot of it, as a community, we need to learn to get around those things and get better instead of always calling them a nerf. And I think that it actually weakens our community when we always are doing that, because like I was talking about with good people or good players will beat those players who are using those cheap tactics. That's going to happen all the time. Go look at any video of any other YouTuber out there. You'll find people beating them. The video I posted yesterday of me versus Super Itachi. He's a Absolute Zero guy to God of Destruction's Wrath guy. back in the fight is before it got all patched, and I beat him with ease. You can watch a video of Dedrick doing the same thing to him before it got patched. So those moves, although they are annoying and they are hard to get around, it's not impossible. That's what makes the preparation so much more important, and the character build so much more important. What I like to pride myself on about Athena is ready for anything. You know, she's pretty much ready for any scenario. So, you know, I use the hyper movement evasive skill because it's basically gives you a stamina break if someone uses a super move or an ultimate move when you still have stamina, which is great. But it doesn't get you out of the way of like the super explosive key wave or those kind of moves. And so that's a problem. Well, I run one-handed Kamehameha for that fact. Now, some people don't like that. They don't like having to, you know, oh, I don't want to have to do this because of this move or whatever. But I think that it's good to have these kind of balances so that you can't just, like, you know, it's good to have a move that counteracts another move or this or that so that you can tailor your fight style to however you want to be. If you want to be someone that your fight style is a trapment fight style, that you trap people in and they can't get away from you, and that's what you do, but you fight somebody whose fight style is they are good at getting away, well then now you're going to have a problem because now they're able to maintain their distance from you, and now what are you going to do? It creates interesting matchups, and that's what I think is good, and that's what makes for a good competitive game. You know, and putting these builds together, mastering these techniques, and having these characters that people are invested in, people care about, some that fans love and fans hate, it makes for a great environment that can really have a great potential for a competitive game. But Xenoverse has to fix some of its flaws. It has to fix its sloppy errors. It can't keep having these translation errors for moves, so that when you are going through the move list, you overlook certain moves because you don't realize, oh, this move has an extra added effect of when you do this, XYZ happens, or this Super Soul, like the Don't Go All Out Super Soul. You know, it doesn't say that when you hit them with the Charged Ki Blast, it takes away 4 bars of stamina. Well, man, that totally changes things when you know that. About that Super Soul, but it's never mentioned. I understand there's some hidden mechanics in this game that people don't know about. I get that, and that's always going to be the case in all fighting games. All of the cancels that you have to be able to know how to do to kind of be in the top tier of this game, those aren't going to be out there in front of your face because the developers probably didn't either know or intend for them to be there, but they kind of worked out, or maybe they did intend for them to be there, but it's a higher level thing. I don't know how that always works out on the game dev side, but I know that that's not going to be at the front of everybody's face, and that's okay. But when you have moves that are intended to have a certain effect and you can't get that across in writing because of translation errors, when you've sold 2 million units of a game, that's inexcusable. When your fans are clamoring for an accessory like Saiyan Tails, and you give them a half-ass version of it, I can't accept that because that is not okay. When they don't move and they just sit there in a static position because you didn't take the time to animate them correctly, that's not okay. The Super Saiyan 4 costumes, it has a tail on it that's already in the game. You could have easily made that one that moves. There's a modeled Saiyan tail in the game that looks exactly like the ones that you have that already moves that you didn't use. They've got to fix these issues. Otherwise, this game is not going to be able to go to the next level, because these kind of just half-assed attempts aren't going to cut it. But anyways, let me know what you guys think. If you guys are still here, I greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Is this good? Potentially competitive? If not, anyways, my name's Kroger. I will catch you guys next time.